Hello. All right, we have finished another book. You've been up since 4 o'clock this morning, finishing this book. Um, uh, I don't know where to begin. I had a lot of high hopes for this book. It has a lot of elements in it that I really love when reading a book. So anything involving the circus or the carnival or sideshows, those are things I love reading about. I'm very interested in. I even worked in a carnival for one summer. Yeah. So then when I found this book, I thought, oh, this is going to be right up my alley. Except that there's a whole bunch of things in this book that are not my cup of tea. And I struggled. I really struggled. So, things that I do not enjoy generally in books. Now, I'm not saying like always every time, but generally, I do not enjoy it when the perspectives changed. I don't like multiple perspectives in a book. I'm sure I have books that I'm like, I love that book, and it's written from multiple perspectives, but as a rule, I do not enjoy that. So this, thankfully, it only has two perspectives, so I mean, it was manageable. But then another thing that I cannot stand is when authors switch from first-person narrative to third-person narrative. It makes me batty. And so this had both those things. So there's two characters, and both those characters switch from first-person narrative to third person. Well, they obviously aren't telling the story in the third person, but the part of the story that's about them gets told in third person. I found that very annoying. I stuck with it because the story itself was good enough. I'll get to that in a minute. I'll just finish up with the writing. There were other things about the writing that bothered me a little bit. For one thing, she seemed to sometimes get stuck in a loop. Like, there's a whole page in here where she's talking about the museum being closed, and there's like 3 paragraphs, and they all start with a topic sentence about some variation of the museum is closed. The museum didn't open because. So it'll be like, the museum didn't open on time because, and then there'll be like this whole paragraph that is about, it's kind of like a tangent about other stuff, whatever, that you think, okay, she's going to bring it back, but then the next paragraph starts, so the museum was not open on time because, and then it just kind of loops into kind of the same thing, and it's just like Groundhog Day, like 3, and that happens several times in the book. And then there's other bits of writing. Again, I think that and like things like this are like, they're kind of more editing than writing. Like, somebody needs to get an editor who's going to catch that kind of stuff and just be like, this part needs to be rewritten. Or like, there's things like wild creatures did not take the time to discern such distinctions. Well, being discerning means to make distinction. So it's redundant, and I don't know. It was bothersome to me. I mean, that being said, there's some other writing in here that's just absolutely brilliant. There's a description that she makes. The story is set during, and a big part of it has to do with the Triangle Shirtwaist fire, factory fire, and she's just describing it. It's really quite a brilliant piece of writing. She's describing what was happening during the fire. At first, the falling girls had seemed like birds, bright cardinals, bone-white doves, swooping blackbirds in velvet-collared coats. But when they hit the cement, the terrible truth of the matter was revealed. I mean, that's some shockingly brilliant writing, and that's the kind of thing that kept me going. But they kind of got fewer and farther between as the story went on. So that was kind of, I mean, it's really good, but also it's unfortunate that that was kind of diminished as the story went on. I do not remember why I put that sticky in there. Anyway, the story itself takes place, there's things that I did love about it. Like, it does take place in New York, 1910 to 1911, during the time just after the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire, Shirtwaist factory fire. I'm very tired. Which was a very important event in the labor movement, and that is so. It's an interesting time. And she writes New York as a character in and of itself, and I always do enjoy that. I love it when an author makes the setting another character in the book, and she does that, and she does it really, really well. So I did really enjoy that. I was not expecting this to be a murder mystery. Like, it did not say, it said mystery, but I wasn't expecting it to be a murder mystery. And maybe that's a spoiler. I don't know. Hopefully not. I don't really care for murder mysteries. Not really a thing. I don't know. So that kind of, it didn't ruin it for me. I mean, it was fine. It's just, it's not what I was expecting to read. So, yeah. And then there's other stuff like, I enjoyed the fact, so it's getting near the end of the story, and okay, this part is spoilers. So if you plan on reading this book called The Museum of Extraordinary Things, if you haven't read it yet and you plan to, like, just stop the video now, and I'll put in the notes when you can duck back in. But because it's my reading journal, I don't really care if I have spoilers, so here they are. Because I'm doing this mostly for me, I do not like it when authors write stories where women have to be saved by men. It annoys me because it's the worst kind of fantasy, and I think it just reinforces a very harmful idea that women have, that men are going to come and save them, when the exact opposite tends to be true. Most men actually are harming women and children. They're harming the planet. They are harming, as CEOs of corporations, like, they are actually not people that we should be relying on or counting on to save us from anything. And so I find that very annoying. And so we're near the end of the book, and there was a man who was attempting to rape her, and she fends him off and somewhat humiliates him, actually. And I was kind of cheering for that. I was like, yay! She defied the trope. And then in the next chapter, the man comes to save her. And I was like, really? She doesn't need the man to save her. Like, and then I was annoyed again. So, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I stuck with it. If I don't like a book, I don't usually, I just won't stick with it. I rarely give 1s or 2s, because that would mean that it's not worth reading. And I don't read things not worth reading. Yeah, I mean, I definitely learned some interesting things about that time period. And I did end up watching, actually, a documentary about that particular fire and how it did spark really the union movement and all of that kind of stuff. And some interesting characters like Captain Jack Bonavita, I think was his name. I'll link to it down below. That's an interesting character right there. There's a lot of use of the elements, like water and fire. They figure very prominently in this story. They're almost characters in and of themselves, actually, when you think about it. So that was really interesting. And like I say, there were parts of it that were just very beautifully written. And then there were just these parts that just seemed really sloppily shot together. And yeah, definitely should have been edited. When I found this book, there was another one called The Dove Keepers, which I'd heard of before. This one seemed like it'd be more up my alley. So now I'm a little bit shy about reading The Dove Keepers. I don't know. If you happen upon this and you've read The Dove Keepers and you thought The Dove Keepers was awesome, maybe leave me a comment and encourage me and tell me why it's something I should get around to reading sooner rather than later. Yeah, so I don't know. So yeah, in the end, I think I'll give it 3 cups of tea. It was worth reading to the end. It had a lot of problems for me as a reader. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not sure what I'm going to read next. Today's kind of weird. I'm supposed to be getting company for night. If that happens, I won't have time to read today. But then, I don't know, like there's some weird stuff going on. So I'm not sure if that's actually going to go or not. If it doesn't, then I'll have to pick something. I'm also going on a trip again. I leave on Wednesday. So I have 2 audiobooks downloaded. Born a Crime by Trevor Noah and Permanent Record by Edward Snowden. So that should keep me busy on the drive. So I'm not sure. So normally I pick if I've finished a fiction, then I read the nonfiction. The nonfiction I'm currently reading, though, is poems and poetry. So I don't really like to read poetry books all in one go, unless they're like, the little chapbooks. But this is like the last Leonard Cohen collection. So I'm kind of savoring it. So normally I would just pick another nonfiction and fiction, but because I've got those 2 audiobooks that are both nonfiction, I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sure where I'm going to go with this. I'll have to figure that out. But anyway, we'll sort that out, and I guess you'll find out in the next video what happened. Yeah. All right. That's really all I had. Happy reading.